3, 2, 1.
Let's go! T-Roy
Skippo.
and P-Dog.
P-Dog on the mic.
T-Roy,
We have
finally.
you back, man.
PBE with 3 is finally back.
with 3 is now a thing again.
We have you back, and we bring you back at the same time we bring it all back, Skips. The whole convention. 2019, we're standing here today amongst thousands of professionals, figuring out the unconventionals and the conventionals and how are we developing as an industry. 2019 SEG is upon us, and the end. This is the end. We don't get it back. Was your time well spent, or did you waste time? Did you drink too much and not learn enough? We're going to find these answers. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to start with the location of SEG this year. SEG 2019, it came out San Antonio. We're going to San Antonio, boys.
We're going back. We're going back. We're going
We were
back
here for Ace.
We were here for Ace.
Yep.
The Fiesta Town.
Fiesta Town is back. While we were at Mexican Independence. Mexican Independence Day was Monday.
It was,
So
yeah.
we were in San Antonio for that. The town has incredible history. That's fascinating. Anywhere you go outside on the river walk and all that stuff is just an unbelievable amount of
Always a
history.
good time.
I stayed at the Manger.
Yeah, The
The
Manger.
Manger.
I've heard 5,000 pronunciations for
Manger?
that hotel.
Manger.
Manger.
Someone
There
just
you go.
corrected this.
5,001.
5,001. We finally got it right. We were staying at the Manger. Haunted.
Supposedly.
Dude, you go out in the hallways at 3 a.m. That's the trick. If you go out into the hallways at 3 a.m., you will hear drawers opening and closing.
That's
There's an
when,
old
that's
lady.
when the ghosts become active.
That's when they get active,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
They're partying. They're having the time of their lives in the hallways at the Manger. And
They're
that's
coming
the
back
thing.
from the Riverwalk. They've tied one on, and they're just roaming
3
through the
o'clock.
halls.
Dude.
Just about time.
So at Ace, we talked about the location. We talked about San Antonio. There is definitely a community out there that's pretty gnarly. I had a couple of run-ins late at night. That was a little beyond sketchy, really.
Yeah.
Remove yourself away from the situation because there's going to be nothing but bad things that could happen.
Yeah.
And that's a very real thing in the cities that we do this in. But we got to scoot. We scoot everywhere. If you need to
Dude.
get out of a quick situation, scan the scooter.
Get on that scoot, bird up, and get out.
I'm a Limes guy. I'm a Limes guy.
Yeah, I'll
Dude,
agree. The birds here were
I'm
pretty
kind of
terrible.
neutral.
You're neutral.
I'm
You're
riding
in-
both.
The happy hour of the week. If you were not at Howl at the Moon on Tuesday night
Last
for
night.
Icons
Off the
happy
chart.
hour, you were not living the best life you could live.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way I could put it.
I 100% agree.
Dueling
100
pianos with a bass and this
The-
whole band just
That
slapping
band
and
was
screaming.
freaking amazing.
The energy in the room. I mean, it was
man.
it was a good time.
Icon went all in on that happy hour. It was unbelievable. There were so many professionals there. Everyone in appreciation of just likewise appreciation.
Yeah.
The service companies putting together something like that, providing the full bar, something to eat, a place to mingle, a place to say, what did you learn today? What are you excited about tomorrow? And we all talk about that. So in appreciation, the operators come out. We enjoy our time together. We
Yep.
get to mingle. We get to know them better. I mean, the point of that is what drives the industry, man. And that happy hour last night was done to perfection.
100%.
Well done. I applaud Icon on putting together
Yeah.
a hell
Kudos
of
to
a
the
deal.
Icon
Yeah.
team.
Oh,
definitely.
man.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the song, turning
Icon
Piano Man,
song.
the Icon song, the Piano Man, Icon
Oh my
song,
god.
lights out. Lights
Hit
out.
the notes
Dude.
perfectly on every person. They had inside jokes
We
for
have a
every
video.
person.
There will be a video that comes out, and P Dog's on the other side of the table. I can't
No,
I
please
can't
don't
say
do
it on
that.
the microphone, but he is so happy. And he goes,
Dude, it was spot on.
so good. He was blown away. It was so good,
So
man.
good.
Howl at the Moon was a great place. The Riverwalk is always really cool. There's plenty of food and plenty of things to do
Yeah.
Yeah.
right next to the convention. It's a
Yeah,
solid
as far
location.
as locations concerned and things to do around the convention center, I'll admit that.
Yep.
I mean, San Antonio's got that going for it.
Yep, but we must bring up the fact that you pointed out. The layout of the inside of Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. All the booths, the posters, the sessions,
Yeah.
the layout of this, really, the posters were terrible. That was a terrible position for the posters.
Yeah. I liked it. Well, I'm only comparing this to Ace, right?
Right.
Because that's the only other conference I've been to here. But having the posters on the way to between the exhibit hall floor and the talks was a lot more effective.
Way more effective,
Yeah.
man. It was loaded every day with people.
Yeah,
They
because
were
you're
looking at that
going
stuff.
to talks, and all of a sudden you walk by a poster, you stop, you look at the poster for a little bit, you go to your talk, and you're thinking about the poster, you come back.
Yep.
I mean, here
Yep.
it's really out of the way, and it's
Oh,
unfair for the students that were doing all that work and
Agreed.
put those posters together, right? You're coming to
Agreed, man.
present at SEG.
They're excited to just be talking. They're right. They don't expect to come here and just stand.
Yeah.
And I was making my way, finally getting around SEG by the second day because I had so much going on up front, right? And there was so much going on. I look over and I'm like, oh, there's the posters. And it was just kind of off in the distance. I'm like, oh, I'll get to it. Never did. By the time I do get over there, I'm looking at a 15-foot by 9-foot TV
Yeah.
from Sony. I'm like, oh, this is like going to be way more cool than a
Right.
poster session. So I'm like looking at that thing. And then I finally make it to the posters, and you're absolutely right. You're spot on, man. We can't allow the design of this show to be about making money.
Yeah.
The purpose of this show is to promote the young professionals, to promote new ideas, to promote what's going on in those posters. That needs to be in the prime spot.
Yeah.
That spot should not be for sale. Put it back next to the escalators. Force the professionals through that environment to be caught by somebody's poster to potentially learn something and allow that young professional to explain their new idea or their thought behind that. That's
Exactly.
the point.
Yeah.
of
Totally
this.
Exactly.
agree. Yeah.
That's the point, man. So they could do a better job on that, in my opinion. I wasn't able to catch any of the oral talks, man, but somebody did. Did you
Someone-
catch any orals?
No, I didn't take it. I didn't get a chance. No, we
dude,
were
it's blowing and going.
We were blowing and going out
Blowing
here,
and going.
man.
You were
Exhausting.
doing good deeds at the Icon booth.
Good deeds at the
Good day.
Icon Live.
We were live. That's where we
We
were.
were live.
But somebody was.
someone was the chair. I heard.
Dude, first time.
Come on.
First-
What was the chair session called?
So it was called Induced Fracturing, and based in rock physics models and how can we predict fractures near
Whoa.
fault zones. And it was brutal.
What?
Yeah, some of the talks shouldn't have been there.
What do you
Let's just say
mean?
that. It's just one talk was just the research was done wrong altogether.
What?
And he was just presenting the wrong thing the whole time.
What?
Somebody accepted that. Someone approved that abstract.
Yeah.
Someone approved that presentation.
But this
And this kinda-
ties back into what we've been saying about all the other conferences. We said it about ERTech as well, and I hate
feel like
to be
people
that
are just
person. I hate
blindly
to-
submitting abstracts
yeah.
and then they're just accepting it. That's it.
They're like the QC process needs to be better, or we just need to limit the amount of oral presentations, right?
Yeah.
We just can't
Yeah.
fill a session for the sake of filling
Yeah.
sessions. I understand that, right?
Yeah.
Where we have this topic and we want to fill it, right? Induce fractures, right?
Right.
And so now we're just like we have 2 more spots to fill, and now we're
Just
trying to
throw it
find,
in there.
just throw
Yeah.
something in there, and it's a bummer, man.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a waste of students' time. He's prepping for all of that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't help the audience at all.
No, it
Son of a
doesn't.
gun. That's
Yeah.
drastic.
There were a couple of good talks though, so
Okay.
something positive came out of
What
it.
Yeah.
was it? What were you picking up on?
This guy, he was a postdoc, and he's trying to predict how fractures would orient close to reverse versus normal faults.
How fractures orient themselves as
Close.
you approach.
As you approach or go away from those fault zones,
Yeah, and how they rotate.
Right on.
rotate and use stereo nets to map those orientations.
Yes.
Stereo nets mixed with.
Dude, that's
seismic-
OG structural geology
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, he was
combined
doing it on
into
an
a-
outcrop?
No, was it on outcrop or
No,
was it
no.
on the
So
subsurface?
it was more of a synthetic model data, but
Yeah.
it can apply to real seismic.
Yeah. So I mean, using that outcrop data though, right? You can then apply it to the seismic data.
Yeah, no.
I
we
mean,
know.
obviously you're going to have the decompression, right? So you're not going to have those fractures that are
Right.
oriented, but that sigma 1 that you're getting from overburden, but
Mm-hmm.
you're still going to get those
That's a
fractures
tricky
that are
deal.
fault associated.
Right.
It's a tricky
there.
deal. But
Yeah.
and we can't do DFN and shit like that. That
Yeah.
can give us a potential answer of where some natural fracturing could be within the vertical resolution of the seismic. Mix that with a great interpretation,
Yeah.
and you might be able to pick up on stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. I mean, the
Really
whole
You
idea
might be able to
behind
get a little lucky.
dude. I think
Yeah.
that whatever that guy
And hit
was
some
doing,
pay dirt in the subsurface.
that was a good talk,
Yeah.
definitely. I liked it.
that sounds like a fascinating talk,
Yeah.
man. I want to know a little bit more about that because that is very, very important. How these reservoirs are fracturing naturally away from the big movement, because that's flow. That's
Yeah.
allowing
Yeah,
fluids and things to move through the rocks.
Well, in theory, right? In a reverse fault, that's caused due to compression.
Yep.
Right? So that fault is being locked up. Granted, once that compressional event ends, you're going to have a little relaxation, and that's when the chance for
With
fluids to migrate.
compression, you have a little bit of shear. And with shear,
Yeah.
you have somewhat of a natural extension for at least a little bit of that system.
A little bit, but it's nothing compared to what you'd see in a
tension.
Sigma 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Understood.
yeah.
Understood. So, dude, that's really good feedback, man. I'm glad you were being very honest about that because we have to stop doing that.
Yeah.
We have to stop doing it. It's not doing anything for the industry. It's not doing anything for the person standing up there. I don't even want to go into the details
Even
of
academia.
academia. I mean,
I mean,
it's just bad.
sometimes I feel like it's just a requirement. If you're doing a PhD, you have to present at a conference.
Oh no, I agree with that, right? But
the fact that it was completely wrong, the research from the
yeah, I
very
don't know how that
beginning,
got in, honestly.
the very beginning was completely wrong. Okay. Overall, Icon Live. Let's switch it from focusing on the convention, what was around us, and now let's
bring
talk
it back
about
in.
what happened here, right here on Icon Live.
I thought you were about to say outcrop.
Outcrop Live,
Outcrop
real
Live.
rocks, real solutions.
Real rocks.
We started piling in a whole plethora of professionals, Icon employees that are working with the software, and we learned a ton.
Oh my gosh.
There were some overall themes through it all. Let's just kind of recap them all together and just throw out some ideas and get some feedback. We started with
Samantha Foley.
Sunday Night Icebreaker, Samantha Foley, the VP of Marketing of Icon itself, the woman who truly believed in us, right? Got us here, built this stage, had this vision.
Yeah.
I mean, and then Julianne and Bridget and all these people came together and they just supported and made this happen. Got us here, and we talked about that with Sam and just her support
Yeah.
and how she sees us. And
And how she sees this conference going and the vision for it. And the theme was that digital transformation, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. So what are we doing here?
So the whole concept of Icon Live was to kind of bring some life to the trade show floor. And, after going to EAGE, ERTEC, and seeing people present PowerPoint presentations, I started to figure out that the meaningful conversations, the magic happens not on the show floor, but at dinner. And I wanted to capture that in a more informal environment that wasn't a PowerPoint presentation. So
Exactly.
that's why we're here. And you guys do a great job.
I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest knocks about a lot of these conventions, right? You just go PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint, and there's really no time to digest the information and actually have a legitimate conversation and let those ideas flow back and forth. So setting up something like this is just awesome.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right in the future, I think. I think you're right in the future. This is definitely going to change things. I think it's going to inspire others to do probably something similar. But I was in a conversation with the president of the APG, Denise Cox, their past president, and she said, why not have some talks that are the other way around? Do like 5-10 minutes of the actual talk, and then let's talk to the crowd or talk to the questions for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're spot on. You knew
Yeah.
this needed to happen, and you made it happen.
Well, and people are less likely. So I'm new to this, the upstream side of the industry, and so people are less likely to ask questions in a very formal environment. And I've heard you guys, and I listened to your podcast, and what happens is you kind of break it down so even the non-scientists, the non-geologists can understand. And my background is, in the downstream industry, so this is all new to me. And when I figured out I could learn from you, I thought that's a really cool way to do thought leadership. And PB is killing it. So thanks for being here with us at Icon Live.
Hell yeah.
It's a pleasure for having us.
Right.
I mean,
100%.
and we dove into that.
Right.
Whether it was intentional or unintentional, that seemed to be a common theme
Yep.
throughout the whole
Yep.
conference.
And then we had Sunday Night Icebreaker, which was just kind of shotgun blasted with people. We had Boris Gervich next. Boom, we dive in with Boris real quick. And then
I mean, you have to work with people who understand practical problems. You have to work with the and the field evolved. In the field of rock physics, that I was blessed to meet very good people in the beginning of my career. Then my mentors that basically had a very sound grounding in the theoretical side of things, and equip you. And when you have a good theoretical background, it kind of helps you to get on with whatever range of problems you are dealing with.
And before we know it, we're with Maitri.
Yeah.
And Maitri's,
Oh, man, she's amazing.
dude, Maitri, the way she thinks, her ability to put a plan together and execute that plan, is top notch.
And her vision for SEG,
Dude.
for young professionals and mentors, right? To give back to the community and just improve the science, right? And to
Right.
improve our interpretations moving forward, right? That's all she was ingraining into us, right? She talks about this kind of liberal arts of geosciences,
Yeah,
right?
dude.
So you're not a geophysicist, you're not a geologist, you're not a geochemist, you're not a reservoir engineer, right? You're not a rock physicist. You are a geoscientist. You need to diversify your learning experience or your
Yes.
background, right?
Yes,
and
dude.
that's going to improve your interpretations
And it's
moving
going to
forward.
improve the industry. It's what the industry needs. We all know it. We all talked about it in all the shows along the way. There was something, and all the shows, pretty common thread was philosophy of the problem, getting personalities involved, getting this taught and understood. And Maitri is a person, in my opinion, and you don't see it, these two qualities in one person, but the vision to do something and the ability to get it done.
Really wanted to hone in a little bit on quantitative skills that we need for geoscience graduates. And I've noticed, that there's a lot of talk right now about people getting into coding.
Right.
But I also think that, just the math proficiency and, the quantitative intelligence, the QI.
QI. We're going to talk about that later with somebody about that QI.
So, if you look at across the board, all the way from college algebra and stats, down to differential equations and quantitative methods, you see that the PhDs are maintaining sort of their quantitative skill sets across the board.
Yeah.
But coming into the industry, especially, are a lot of people who have bachelor's and master's degrees, especially master's degrees.
100%.
And this is from the AGI, and it's a pretty current graph. If you look at that green line for the master's folks, you see how there's a pretty steep drop off
Right.
in quantitative skills. And this is something that really needs to be addressed in our curricula.
And I feel like Maitri is 100% that person, and that's why, without hesitation, at the end of that little segment, whatever she's doing, PBE is a fan of. Whatever she's doing, we're in support of, and we are pushing all the things that she wants pushed forward through the SEG, the AGU, all that stuff. We're in full support, man. That lady is going to change the world for sure.
Yeah.
For
Without a
sure.
doubt.
That one was one of my favorites for sure. Then we had Klaus Koster.
Yeah, Klaus Koster.
Klaus
It's
Koster.
that hard K.
Koster.
From Oxy. Chief
From that's right. Occidental Petroleum,
Oxidarco.
Oxidarco. Why didn't we bring that up?
We should have, and I'm super bummed we missed out on that opportunity. The Oxidarco chief geophysicist.
I think
Yeah.
was he chief geophysicist?
Geophysicist.
Okay.
Chief geophysicist.
Talking about reservoir characterization right here, live. Oxy reservoir characterization.
I didn't
right
really
here.
catch his talk. Did he talk about Permian or what was
He talked a little bit about everything, right? We really went into how many reservoirs he characterized and into the topic of he who sees the most rock wins, right? And he worked a reservoir in just about every basin I could think of off the top of my head, or more than I could think. I was like, oh, you worked there too? I didn't know there was exploration going on there.
It was an incredible career and a short show. It was an incredible career and a short show, and we would be lucky to get someone like him back on the show, and we certainly opened that invite up to him. Then we go right into Keith Edwards, and this guy, he definitely had the personality. He was a little bit more leaning forward on the show, and which was cool. After the thing, he came up and kept talking about it.
He's like, we got to do more of this. We got to do more of this.
Nice.
Yeah, Keith was a pleasure to have, and we need to get him back on.
It was, and saying that, we both thought about this right before the show, and it was like, what was it that we actually drilled down into with Keith? Like, I couldn't remember, but I know I'm going back to watch that show without question,
No, without a doubt.
and be like, oh yeah, that's why it's in our head. We're like, dude, that was a great show. He was a great guest, but we can't think like, what was it at one point that he made or whatever it was. I think it's going to go down to like a philosophy thing and being a mentor and a mentee and that whole thing we talked about. We need to integrate. We need to elevate this industry. We need to drill better wells, spend less money, make more energy. How do we do it tomorrow? How do we do it? We talk to people like Keith Edwards. Keith, thank you so much for joining us on this show. And we want your perspective, or we want to understand your perspective of it today. And to do that, academia, some young professional, and then to where you are today, and then we'll get into your presentation.
All right. Well, I'm gonna skip ahead here to the first slide
Okay.
because it really introduces me. There we go. So,
What are those?
you know, I started my career working for a company called GMA, and we did forward modeling. And after working there about 7 years, I went out consulting.
Okay.
And after I made a little money, I went out and I bought myself some seismic conversion software. And they came on disc 1 and disc 2, 5 1/4 inch floppies.
Then the icebreaker. We got people around. We're totally disrupting this thing, by the way, with the microphones and the speakers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
this
Everyone's
podcast.
walking in
People are
like,
just
who are
like
these
mid-catting
guys?
us. What?
We're getting
What's going on?
by Sunday night. They're telling us, "Man, I can hear you on the other side of the building. You guys are out of control." But they, you know what? They enjoy it. It's different, and we're just fans of everybody, and so it's a very positive thing. And we end it with Monica Breach.
Miss Monica Beach.
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 No R.
Beach. No R.
I points.
Silent R.
A really good show to end the icebreaker.
I think that was the perfect transition into digital transformation.
Yeah, man. Decrease our mistakes.
Yep.
That's what you're focusing on with iPoint.
Yeah, and not only that, but just making sure that data is accessible, right?
Yeah.
So everybody in this
Huge.
hall probably has data, but most of them probably don't know where it all is.
Yeah.
Don't know what quality it is, and therefore they're not using it, right?
I mean, it's the history of this industry too, right? People save things their own way, do things their own
Yeah.
way, and
It's
then
a
someone new comes in and
huge
like,
uptaking.
Yeah.
where's that data? Like, I know companies that have seismic surveys that were stored in files that they didn't know about.
Exactly. And the thing is, right now, the industry is really starting to shift towards thinking about things like data-driven analytics and machine learning and all these
Right.
really
Yeah.
neat new ways to
Right.
utilize data. But it's also simultaneously pulling out this giant skeleton in everybody's closet that's like, yeah, but we don't really know where the data is. We can't put our hands on it. We don't know if it's good, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, the machine learning stuff is pretty easy. Getting your data ready for it, that's really the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about.
Well, it's such an overwhelming, daunting task for anybody. Like, even myself.
Right.
I would be, and I will say it right now, absolutely embarrassed when you come to my office and you're like, let's break into your data.
Yep.
And you're like, why do I find log data in the taxes 2018 personal folder?
Yeah.
That you're like,
Exactly.
I know there's mistakes because it's happening so fast. You're clicking on all the different boxes.
Yep.
You have software open. I got 3 screens, sometimes 4. I'm looking at everything, and you can start
okay.
dragging and dropping
Yeah.
things so easy on a server.
Yeah.
There's so many little problems.
Really talking about utilizing your data, right? Getting it all onto one easily maneuverable database, right? Which is iPoint, the
Yep.
product that Icon provides, right? You know, your core data, your log data, get everything on depth, you know, because that's always a pain. You see people, you know, these different petrophysical softwares where you have your log and you're trying to tie your core to it.
Right.
And it's like, all right, you got to import it as a JPEG, and then you got to stretch and squeeze, and
Yeah.
you just put
Yeah.
those endpoints in, and it automatically fits it
Gets
for you,
all
just like that.
distorted. I mean, there's so many problems with merging all those data sets with other things that
Yeah. You're doing
I-
weird things in PowerPoint just to match those
iPoint,
devs.
Oh, yeah.
iPoint certainly is a data management solution that's being provided to the industry, and it seems very good. And Monica did a great job just being a good guest, being energetic,
Yeah.
and she had great thoughts on data management. She obviously knew how to use the tools, and that's definitely was a good show. We ended the Sunday night just like that, man. It was done. It came, it went. We go out. We get prepared for Monday.
Yeah. I actually went to bed that night at like a reasonable hour too. I was like,
Sir, how many ounces are in this? 32?
Oh, game face. Game face. Das Boot. Das Boot. Oh.
11 o'clock night. From
That's
that.
because we didn't talk about Saturday night.
Yeah.
We dodged Saturday night, but now that you're talking about it.
That was a rough Sunday.
Oh,
let's not talk
my
about that.
goodness. It's
I stole a lot of happiness from Sunday morning. I'll put it that way. A lot of happiness was stolen because of Saturday night.
dude. So we're sweating it out by Monday, and it feels good. It feels good. We're
yeah.
rolling. We're getting comfortable around the stage. We're getting comfortable with how this setup is, running everything. We're firing on all cylinders, and then we have S on. S on from Icon.
Mm-hmm. S on from Icon.
He has a presentation that he wants to give, but we weren't really in solid preparation with him as a guest. So he came to us like right before. He's like, what exactly are we doing? And so, boom, hey, we're getting on the mics literally right now. That's what we're doing. And then we jump in, and that kind of is what sped the presentation to kind of a couple of main points, and we ended up jumping around a lot.
Yeah.
And we brought up, I mean, obviously it was a lot of QI, right? A lot of this
A lot of machine learning.
machine
Yeah,
learning,
ton of
and
machine
AI,
learning.
and this, how are we doing this? How are we creating facies based on seismic anomalies and petrophysical anomalies? We're building these facies.
Well, that
we're
and
coming
also
up with,
predicting logs as well,
Yeah,
right? Using
yeah.
machine learning in order to, hey, we don't have a VP or whatever log
Right,
that
yeah.
you don't have, right? But
Yeah.
we have these data points.
Yep.
Let's build a synthetic, right? And then attempt to match it.
Yeah, and then we so what happened organically on the show was we were like, hey, we still got like 10 minutes. Let's keep going with this. And one thing I'll go back to on this show for sure is when he starts talking about finding overpressured rock, right? All the different ways they cut the data to find that attribute that says you're overpressured here, and this is your reservoir. So you want to be there, but why? Why is that happening? Do you have seal integrity and all these other things that should support what the seismic attribute is telling us about overpressure?
Yeah.
There are other things that you must think about. And we brought that up, and he's like, hey, you guys are geologists. I mean, hey, you guys.
I told the machine what to do. Here's the
Yeah.
result.
Yeah,
Go
so
figure
that-
it out.
I thought that was a great way to end it, and I'm going to
Yeah.
go back and check out some of those slides for sure in that show. Dr. Roach.
Dude, another solid show, man.
Yeah. Dr. Roach brought in his partner in crime. What was his name? He was
Blank Angelo something.
Angelo, that's
Angelo.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Dr.
just
Angelo.
Dr. Angelo is what we'll call him.
In the context of a multidisciplinary team, so if everyone's working from different angle, you got the people working from rock physics, maybe the acquisition, the processing, the quantitative interpretation. Everyone is watching how their components meet.
Yeah.
They're challenging each other's assumptions and checks and just seeing how the whole thing comes together. You end up with a
That's-
stronger solution.
Yeah. You do that through software then. You'd have to do the software is the hub that each of those departments can go in from their own angle and expertise and mindset. They're coming into the software and they're looking at that curve going, wait, the curve doesn't see, that response doesn't make sense to my model. Why is it this way? And the rock physicist is seeing that same data in the same project at that same time and saying, no, that's the actual response. There was no washout. There was no problem in the petrophysics, right? Is it? Do you think is it software that's integrating that, and we need to do a better job at how the software can help us transfer this knowledge?
Well, software is one thing. Also, another thing also in terms of you say how the QC processes or things like that. One thing that I think is important. Most companies are doing, but to some degree, is to create some kind of a corporate memory when it comes to workflows. Because when you try to QC any process at all, I mean, especially when you talk about younger individuals coming behind you, I mean, having some high level or some workflows to go through the process.
Yeah, there should be a basic workflow, and it's kind of like you set out, this is the path that has worked before. These are the steps that we do. But I also like it when you can challenge the person's innate curiosity and creativeness to give them the freedom that they can explore side paths that either check the work or find something new.
And now you're putting them in a position where you're saying, you got to work for like 30 years and really get kind of grind through this and just follow my blueprint and you're going to get through it. And maybe you'll make some discoveries or, sink or swim. But you're saying, no, that's definitely not how this needs to happen. You have to create an environment for the young professionals to know that there are no limits.
Dr. A.
Dr. A. And he was from, he was on the operating side?
Yeah, he was on the operating side.
Golly, what was it? It's all happened pretty quick. I don't have it in my notes where he was from.
But we really dove into that mentor-mentee relationship. That was
the conversation after the show was really good because we really got them fired up. There's a moment in that show that Dr. Roach looks at Dr. Angelo while we were talking about this important factor that goes into everything we do as young professionals, respecting and understanding the position that the older professionals are in as their mentees and we're mentors and integrating that thing and understanding each other's perspectives and understanding our limits ourselves and the limits of who we're teaching, right? Really understanding that and figure that out. Dr. Roach looks over at Dr. Angelo and he's just kind of lit up to me. He's like, they got it. And he looks over at Dr. Angelo and he's just like, nods his head, his head. And he's like that's it, right? Like, I felt like for a moment, to me, it felt like he was like, that's a purpose to go to work right there.
Yeah.
I feel good about that idea. And dude, to have that person with that experience that gets lit up by that idea, that's who we all need in our lives, man. That is a mentor. That guy will go exhaust himself to help us answer questions. I bet we can call that guy, the three of us, for the rest of our lives. Because of the show we did, we could probably call him and say, hey, here's the situation I'm in. Do you have anything? And he's going to have I felt like he was a very selfless and just he was just inspiration.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. Great show. Tad and Olga.
And Olga. The dream team.
Olga. Oh, dude. When we got on the microphones and did that right before her show, what?
He's like, Troy, stop.
Exhaust us and our platform to help in any way to make this happen, because we're fans of integration and elevation of this industry, our societies, and what we get to do as professionals. It's a wonderful, wonderful life.
Okay.
And I think with that, this is the end of the show. What do you guys think? Anything to close this out?
No, I think I like what you're touching on there. I find that those sorts of people you're talking about sort of self-identify, and what managers can do is kind of get out of the way and give them the resources and the time to go do these things, for one thing, right?
Wow. Yes.
And we have to find those people who sort of self-identify as somebody that really wants to be engaged, but then also you gotta identify those folks and maybe you're a little bit more shy about it, but also absolutely want to be out there, and that's a tougher thing to do. But the SEG recognizes this is a huge issue. We need to reach out to the young crowd. We need to foster relationships with them, and we need to show them the relevance of what we do when we talk to them. So I think all of us, Olga, myself, and everybody on the SEG board or an SEG committee, we're always, anytime we're talking to young people, we ask, are you involved? Are you a member? So just promote that. Ask the same questions yourselves.
Just ask the question.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like young people really have to try themselves out in many different roles before they really find what really suits them.
Sure.
You know, for example, I have to serve on like 5 different committees before I found the one that I'm really, really enthusiastic about. But that's okay, because you serve for a year and then you leave that spot for someone else, and then you move on. But this is part of our goal, to educate people about what's out there, what's available to them, and really explain how it might benefit them. You know, I think you're right in the way that people have to have that personality to be outgoing, but also it's a role of mentors to really point people in the right direction. If Dad wouldn't twist my arm like 7 years ago, I wouldn't be standing here for sure. Wow. So it's really up to us now to twist someone else's arm, because they might even know what they're missing.
Love that.
Love it. Stop. We're not in Midland.
Olga's so good. Olga is something else, man. One of a kind in the Permian Basin for sure.
Yep.
Her heart for the society, her heart for SEG, being put into a position that seems like a very important role from SEG, as Tad explains it on the show.
Yeah.
They really go through this idea, which above all common threads with all these shows, is the idea that you get involved with the society, get your ass to these conventions, and shake hands and talk to people. That's the common thread.
Exchange ideas.
Exchange ideas, exchange your passion, your curiosity, and you're elevating everybody. And through all the shows, all the success, Tad Smith's success at Apache and everything he's done, started in 2000 at these SEG shows and at these conventions and in the societies. And I mean, without question, that is a must for every professional in the oil and gas industry. Engineers, landmen, whatever it is, get with your local society, get involved, give back a little bit more than you take. That's all it is, man. And it totally has a positive reaction to the rest of your life.
100%.
And you'll see where it'll take you.
Right, man.
There's a living legend right here, Tad Smith,
Dude.
who did all of those things, and look at his profession, his career.
I mean, look at him now, right? He's semi-retired.
Yep.
He does what he loves for 15 hours a week, and then
rides his bicycle. So that was an awesome show about the very real fact It's a fact. This is empirical data. Get involved with societies, have a healthy career, work your ass off, do it right, have morals, have ethics, get through your
and
job.
don't be afraid to help those beneath you, right? People that are less experienced, don't be afraid to reach out and pull them through the fire.
That's right. That's right, man. So that was a great show. It was a really, really good show. Then we had Adam Bucky, or should I say Buckeye? I should not say Buckeye. I should not say Buckeye. I'm sorry, Adam. I was just kidding again, because he is definitely not a Buckeye fan, even though you are.
Let's go Bucks. Let's go Bucks.
And then he brings up the fact, he's like, yeah, I go to Golden State. I'm a Gopher. Bucky the Badger.
He's like, there are a lot of problems here. then he starts with geology, right, and then goes to Fairbanks and studies geophysics for his master's.
Oh,
right?
that's right.
So he's
That's
got
right.
this solid rock foundation, and now he's applying those real facts about the physical world into the subsurface using seismic data.
And to get your perspective on that is fantastic, and we're super excited about it. What do you think of the Icon Live podcast booth? What do you think of this thing?
Hey, this is great.
Pretty sweet?
Yeah, something sweet for sure.
Sweet,
Definitely
man.
a twist on standard SEG.
It's a little bit of a twist.
Yeah, a little
definitely.
outside of the normal box, right?
Certainly. So how did it all start?
Oh, my career in geosciences started, student at University of Minnesota, went to Alaska Fairbanks.
Golden
for
Gopher.
The Golden Gopher, that's
Wow.
right.
Let's go.
And then I turned into a Nanook and went to Alaska Fairbanks. So polar bears.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm following now.
There's
Caught up.
the geology there, though. Oh, my gosh.
Oh,
It
yeah.
must have been.
Snap.
That's
Yep.
heaven.
Yep.
That's heaven.
Great rocks, great mountains, great weather, a little cold.
Yeah.
Oh, I can
Geology
imagine.
degree at Minnesota, and then
Geophysics degree.
in Minnesota.
No, geology degree in Minnesota.
Yep.
Geophysics degree at Geophysical Institute, University of Alaska Fairbanks.
What the heck?
So
and that set up really good contacts, got you right into the industry, or how did that go from?
Yeah, so my background is in snow, ice, and permafrost. So I was studying glaciers and permafrost changes in the Wrangell Mountains of Alaska, and through that, some connections. Went to a conference and ended up interviewing with ExxonMobil, and
No kidding.
they set the stage, and I thought, well, hey, life's all about new things, new adventures. So I took them up on it, and 15 years later, haven't looked back.
So just that initial, setup, right, is what led. And he did a thesis on permafrost.
Yeah, that's right.
And someone at ExxonMobil looked
Yep.
at him across the table and said, "This guy's going to be special."
Yeah. Now he's chief geophysicist or some kind of professional development position.
Yeah.
At ExxonMobil. Like, dude, that guy is a living legend. He's seen it. He's seen a lot. He's done a lot, in his perspective of understanding and respecting the physical world and turning it into data and making interpretations on that with high-level science and components that can read that stuff. He's got it, man. He's got whatever it is, and it's a perfect position for somebody like him to be that mentor and be that guy, because we talked about it in his show a little bit, this window of time. We are in this window of time of still having and living with the people who were going through the golden years of geology. The golden years of geology is when their boots were on the ground, and we were mapping this stuff, and we were in the physical world. They were touching it. They were mapping it. These people are still alive, and now we have graduate students that don't even own a pair of boots, right? All they know is software. It's wrong. That's wrong. That's
wrong.
right, Sue. But they know software. They know how to move the tools. They know how to understand. Okay, I
went
get it.
I went on a virtual field trip.
I went on a virtual field trip.
It's probably there somewhere.
No.
And
if you're not in a tent and you're wondering what that brushing in the bushes and there's a
Who's sniffing on the tent outside?
Yes.
and you do one last final prayer, just hoping for the best. You wake up the next day and you just go mapping again.
And Adam Bucky from ExxonMobil, geophysicist, standing here yesterday with us, was telling us that that's right. It's a window of time. We have the people who lived through the golden years of geology and understanding the physical world because they mapped it. They also understand the digital transformation that we're under and the future of that. And they have young professionals coming in, dying to know what to do. What do you want us to do? I'm down. I'm ready to exhaust myself mentally and physically for what you need in this company. All right, here's what we need. Stay focused on the physics. Stay focused on, right?
Yep.
And we have people like that. It's so important, man, and it's our time right now. There's no other time. After this, it could get very, very wild if we disconnect with the physical world. We have this opportunity to stay grounded in that before we move on and before we see this step change that's inevitably coming. The step change is coming. We're going to do better in this industry. But right now, we're focusing on the physical world, still understanding how that turns into a data, and then how that actually gets interpreted in software that's reading the data, not the physical world.
Mhm.
There's that transition. This digital transformation is so important. And to have the people who understand the physical world still here today, being our mentors is pivotal, man. It's vital. It's vital. And Bucky was spot on with that. Anything else for Bucky, Adam Bucky?
I think you summed it up there in a short 10-minute 10-minute
Almost
rant.
lost my breath.
Dude, that was good, man. That was good. Well, then we move on to Bruce.
The happy hour, dude.
The big Bruce.
The big Bruce energy.
This show, Skippo. The coolest part about the happy hour, officer, how are you, sir? Appreciate your service, man. Got some Tito's here if you want to pull. maybe after the shift. That Monday night show with Fairfield and Bruce Carr, right? The coolest thing that I realized after that show was done was that we had Jumper on the show back in Midland, the CEO and president of Dawson, who built the acquisition and has the equipment shaking on the ground right now to the most advanced. Right now, the most advanced shoot ever. On land, I think.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Okay, so then we had Stoney and Ronco from Fasken, the end users, and then boom, the happy hour show was Bruce Carr from Fairfield, the people processing it.
I'll tell you the real issue.
Let's hear it.
We lost the narrative. We started talking about cost, and we quit talking about value. That's the real problem in the seismic space. We became very efficient. We have gotten ourselves to where we shoot things faster than we can permit it and survey it. So the crew time is actually very small, and we're under such heavy pressure as an industry, as all our services, to cost. And we lost the conversation in the industry of value. I personally believe the seismic space, the seismic method, the seismic data brings more value to the E&P sector than any other single science they deal with. And we don't get paid for it. And that's not all. That's not, we're as guilty. Cloyce Talbot told me one time years ago during a downturn, we were talking about services and he said, E&P companies don't cut prices, contractors do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you lose, and I think this is a real serious issue inside E&P companies, outside E&P companies in the space, we have to start talking again about value. People will pay for value.
That's right. Absolutely.
But you have to prove the value.
There you go.
Unfortunately, either by not having the proper opportunity at the right time in the unconventionals, or the fact that maybe we haven't been as successful as we need to be, we haven't been able to lead to that value conversation. I personally believe we're going to get there. I personally believe the industry will continue to create value for the end user.
Okay, so here's kind of a little sneak peek. We're in the RCRL with the BG, and here's some of the work. They've got our full Fasken data set, and they're doing a little bit of work. Next slide. So this is kind of a cross-section I had from the platform to the...
Platform on the left, basin on the right.
Yeah, platform on the left into the Midland Basin up in the upper Guadalupean section. Because that's a problem too.
Yeah.
You got some fields, they say this is a San Andres field like the Maybe, and it's really Grayburg. Okay?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
You got that problem too. So Charlie Cairns,
that's a whole other episode.
Charlie Cairns has taken his sequence lines, our L7, L8, G through, you've heard of the G1, the G2. They always talk about them. And kind of put these together. And then we take the seismic, next slide, and we start to see some of these sequence stratigraphic lines on even old vintage seismic data. And mind you, ask Ron.
I know those lines.
We're getting ready to reshoot all this, man. We are reshooting it right as we speak.
You guys are about to see the resolution that no one else has ever seen.
The highest fold that has ever been seen in the Grayburg-Sanders section. Okay, so that's exciting.
Oh my gosh, it's beyond exciting.
And if anybody wants that data, they can also go to Fairfield, who's marketing that. There's a plug for Fairfield, which they're shooting a larger area around the Sea Ranch, which will be available on the platform. Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Snap.
And
that's worth every penny.
Next one, and then Charlie's kind of getting to a couple of versions of a true sequence stratigraphic framework model for the Central Basin platform to the Midland Basin, which we have never seen before.
Right. It's always been too tricky. What's the McKnight black?
Oh, that's a whole nother episode.
Okay.
Go back up.
What happens if you zoom into Permian?
Yeah, let's see what's going on in the Permian.
Well, we know what's going on in the Permian.
I know what's going on in that yellow.
Yeah, right around here, Dawson Geophysical Company.
Don't read that either.
Don't read that.
Is this not the 850 square mile best seismic shoot ever being shot in the Permian? Is that what?
We're on it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stoney kind of touched on it yesterday. He said that he's really, really excited about it.
What did he call it? He said the biggest. How did he say it?
It was the biggest resolution in terms of seismic.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
the highest resolution seismic.
I think it was the biggest single shoot, because I mean, all the majority of the shoots in the Permian are all merged together, right? So
when you're talking about the seismic surveys and how big they are, you have to figure out what you're using as a metric. Mm-hmm. Is it square miles? Is it number of channels? Is it density? Is it those types of things?
And I think he was talking about squares in particular.
And that one is it's a large 3-component job. So total channel count on it somewhere around 132,000, something like that.
So what the hell?
So it's big.
So when you say 3-component, it's recording VS?
Yes, C wave. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, converted wave. Yep.
That's a big deal for a geophysicist.
If you can process it.
Once you can figure out how to get it processed and get it, event registered.
Right.
It would be very helpful. So, but there's enough control in this area that you got a better chance with it. So, and the multi-component processing's come a long way in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. That's computer power. That's simply that. Wow. You guys are gonna write the future.
And his philosophy was really like, there's all kinds of capability coming from this. I'm not sitting here telling you what we're going to do with this. I'm going to more talk about what's possible. And that's the environment we need, man. That's the philosophy we need when you have a brand new data set that's never been seen before. That much data has never been collected before. It's never been put back into time and depth calibrated and all that again.
I mean, all these operators, too, are using seismic shoots from the early 2000s, right? And he explains the channel size that they were doing back then opposed to this shoot, right? And not only that, we know a lot of that acreage has already been developed, right? With those companies like Diamondback, SM, Endeavor, right? They're doing these massive tank pads, right? Where they're drilling 10 laterals that are 10,000 feet long.
Wow.
How is that, taking a look back at that and doing a 4D interpolation on it, that the data that's going to come out of that and the improvements in the unconventional industry that are going to come out of this shoot alone is going to be
It's the future.
Game-changing.
It is
Game-changing.
truly the future, man. They have it. It's being done. And everyone involved is like, we're talking about it. This is not a competitive advantage to anyone. And it started with Ronco and Faskin, dude.
Yeah.
That's how it all tied in. It's just an incredible story that's developing through the PBE podcast, fellas.
Yep.
Without question. No one's talking about this. Certainly no one's talking about it with us and on camera and being recorded on audio so we can go back and really listen to what we're saying.
Yeah.
One day we will look back and be like, wow, the ground was the ground was literally shaking.
Yep.
And we were there. We lived it. And that happy hour was solid, man. An hour show of just really, really cool, high level. Here's what's happening. Here's what's going to be delivered to the industry. And then with these shows that happened after on Tuesday and Wednesday, we're talking about it. Applying 4D and how important it is, that application to doing that in time-lapse seismic. And it's happening live in the PBE podcast through all the acquisition company, the end user, the processing company. We got it all. We're developing it all and we're giving it back to the world, and it's through PBE. Mm-hmm. We're giving it back. It's incredible,
No,
man.
I think this data set would change things in the Permian for sure.
Oh, yeah. All right, so moving on to Tuesday, right? So now this is probably one of my personal favorite talks at the convention, right?
Yeah.
The first talk on Tuesday with Anglia Sweet and Susan Morris.
Uh-oh.
Talking about women in energy.
Anglia
Sweet and Susan Morris. Talking about women in energy and how Susan Morris just went out there, totally different mentality than anyone else graduating, right? You know, most people are graduating looking for a super major or someone to give me a job. Hey, please give me a job. I want to work for you. I want to work for you. She said, no, I'm starting my own company just like Rockefeller. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to drill a well, and it's going to be successful. And not only that, right, she went to an area that was condemned. 50 dry holes were drilled in Belize. And she went in and said, with a
I can
gut,
do better
with
science than you.
Yeah, with a gut feeling, and hey, I can make this work. You couldn't. Your huge team of experts couldn't, but I can. And she did.
Wow. Do you know Conor McGregor personally?
I wish I did, but I can box.
Hey, we'll set it up.
To study geology, natural science geology, and absolutely adored it because it was outdoors, it was with nature, and because nothing was exact. You had various dots, and you made up the rest of it. So it really utilized your imagination and your mind. It was really cool. Then I was hired by an American company and brought to the United States. But I thought everybody was an entrepreneur. So I set up my own company very, very quickly, because I thought that's what Carnegie had done and Rockefeller and all those guys. I thought, well, this is what Americans do.
Producing energy, not only that, but changing a country, right? Bringing that energy and bringing those dollars to that country, that's what drives a country out of impoverished situations, correct?
Directly impacting the lives of the individuals in that country is unbelievable.
I studied at university in Thailand, and the way I got into geology was purely by accident. I know that I love science, so I went to major in Faculty of Science. So the first year of my undergrad school in Khon Kaen University in Thailand, I took all the classes, biology, physics, everything, and never liked any of it.
Me
you
too.
know, actually, it kind of funny that I'm a geophysicist by degree and working. But my first class in physics, I failed. I got an F.
Wow.
I'm proud to say that.
I'm proud to say that.
Just because I didn't, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, you have to get to class. So that didn't quite work out for me. So I was about to give up being a scientist. So in summer, there was a professor in geology, and he offered Geology 101. And this is like, imagine Einstein, this professor. He kind of looked like Einstein and crazy, So I said, what the heck, I'm taking it, So I took it, and something in my head just ping. I understood everything. I was able to relate to what he was saying. So I know that, that is my destiny.
That's where I want my career to be. At the end of the day,
hey, we'll see.
I want to be sitting on that side of the table.
We will see, man. We will see. Just put your head down. That's what you guys did. So you guys both, at that point, put your heads down. When do you guys meet? You go to work. You just start grinding it out. You start changing lives. You start making an impact. When do you guys cross paths? How did that happen? When did you guys meet?
Well, just before, I'd say it's not just about putting your head down.
Yeah?
I did a critical thing about 16 years ago. I asked myself, what really makes somebody great? What makes somebody like Nelson Mandela or Gandhi? Wow. And I realized that we had studied the rocks of the earth, the evolution of the earth, the plate tectonics, which I loved, but we did not know how our mind works. And a famous oil geologist called Wallace Pratt, he actually formed the American Association of Petroleum Geologists. He has a famous quote, and it is, "Oil is found in the minds of men." I said, what about the girls?
That has been disrupted.
And so that prompted me to do research on how exactly the mind works. And that research, that seminar I did 16 years ago, was exactly how the link really here with the word destiny or that click that we don't really know how to explain. It's that internal force, that energy, the real energy is within us. That's the capacity to bring out and be able to join the dots within oneself, with that alignment, and within the people, and share that energy, and that's the big time.
Wow. 3, 2, 1.
Let's go! You know, I was a young geologist when I was asked the question, is there any oil down here? And I went on the invitation of quite an eccentric English oil man called Sir Ian Rankin. Went to Belize because I knew it was, let's just say, from a tectonic point of view, part of the greater Mexican basin. When I arrived, I fell in love with the people, and that created a motivation, a purpose that was even greater than the finding of the oil.
Yeah.
It was actually about the people, and that's what kept Mike and I together against all odds. You know, when people were saying, you're loco, you're stupid.
You're loco.
But now they're not. Now they want to join us, partner with us, do everything.
You want to do a JV relationship or something?
Yeah, exactly.
And she not only changed for herself economically, but for a country, right?
Yep.
That kind of discovery can take a country out of the third world, bringing energy to them, making sure lights are on 24 hours a day, right?
The
jobs, you know, now we're diversifying, as she said, right? Oil goes down, all of a sudden now we're making lipstick, we're making, we're making.
I love that philosophy. It's like, I don't care if the oil goes down, I'm focusing on byproducts.
Yeah.
She had a direct impact on the lives of a whole country, man. All because she just, her whole mindset going into school was like, I'm getting out, I'm creating an oil company, I'm finding oil. That's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And she went out and she did it. And then she changes the freaking economics of a whole country, man. And Anglia was clearly just so inspired by her.
Yeah.
And then come
and
to find
she's doing
out,
the same thing right now in Mexico.
Yeah, dude, offshore Mexico, she's doing the same thing, and that's what we're all doing. And that for sure, for me, without question, was the light of the show. Not to get spiritual, but I felt like God was there with us during that show, man. She had this energy about her, and it was proven, and it was alive, and it was breathing, man. She's just an amazing woman. I get chills even talking about that show. That one will be going out to everyone that I know. For sure.
Very soon. Very soon.
Jacob Hella.
It's a Hella.
Hella.
It's the Hella.
Hella.
It's not Heller?
Well, it is Heller, but he says Hella because he's like a Viking.
Yeah.
You're looking at invasion while drilling as a permeability indicator and as a pore pressure indicator.
Well, obviously, if you take a kick and you get flow into the borehole, you will get an idea what the actual pore pressure is. Yeah, you can
That's
calculate.
interesting. Is the pore pressure curve right there? That's a calculated curve based on depth and what?
So that profile there generally is a combination of estimating pore pressure. So this here is for a well that hasn't been drilled yet.
But talking about pore pressure, right, and de-risking, before you drill, right? Figuring out in the seismic, is this anomaly due to pore pressure or is it due to TOC?
Yeah.
Right? And just, that pre-drill, making sure everything goes right. Right? So we don't have any blowouts. No blowouts. Everyone's safe. We don't have a bit drop. Whatever have you. He's there to help de-risk. And at the end of the day, you de-risk, you make money.
Yep. Which was a great education for me, man. I'd never really thought and gotten down the rabbit holes of how much seismic helps on just de-risking what we do when it comes to just putting a wellbore in the ground. Long before you do it, use the seismic to de-risk that stuff and how valuable that is in itself. I'm always pushing on the front lines of like recovery factor, right?
Yeah.
EUR, all that stuff. Let's do that with seismic. But there's a very real application going on, and that's why SEG is so big. That's why it should stay successful. That's why being a geophysicist and being involved in this part of the industry should always be very successful. We're drilling safer. We're making better predictions. Technology will catch up. Our geologic science, our concepts will catch up, and we will increase recovery factors. So it was awesome. It was a great education on that.
And then from there, moving into the Three Musketeers, the dream team.
Hashtag Jay Glaze.
Oh yeah, what was Jeremy
Gallup?
The Jezza?
Jezza, Dr.
Dr.
Jezza.
Jezza.
The
Yeah.
Jezza.
The
Dr.
Jezza.
Jezza. Did he say Glaze?
Dude, things happen.
I'm trying to keep up with
It was happy
It's day
hour.
3. It's day 3.
What do you mean?
The Jezza? No, Jezza's
No, it's the other one. That's Alan.
That's Alan.
That's Jerry, yeah.
Come on, Drew. We got
We're falling all over ourselves right
No, but that was a great talk.
That was
Three Musketeers.
that was my favorite icon talk.
So let's set up a visual right now, and I want to take you guys into this reservoir we just found. It's this building. It's
Can I
the
buy into
size
it?
of this building, and it's as long as this building. It's a black shale. It's an unconventional rock. We landed over here. We built the curve. We're drilling a 6.5-inch hole through this building, going this way, perpendicular to maximum horizontal stress. And now we have to put a frac away in this thing. I would argue that the industry has gone from creating huge fracs, one plane, big wing fracs.
These huge
that are
bi-wing fracs,
Yeah,
you know.
highways. They go to that wall, they go to this wall, and they're just one big frac that's going out that way. And maybe it goes up and it's controlled by maybe some carbonates or whatever that frac barrier is above and below. But really all we had were some big fracs that went away from the perfs every 120 feet for the length of this building. Now the industry seems to be saying that's bad. That's conventional stuff. If you have the porosity and permeability relationship, the K-Phi relationship, you got to have porosity and it has to be connected. We don't need those big fracs that are hooking up this room. We need to now focus near wellbore. We want to stay in this section of this, say it's in fourths. We want to stay in this fourth of the section. Complexity around the wellbore. We want to cut and break as much new crystal face of the rock as possible and then get that to drain back to our wellbore that is this big through this room and get it back to surface. How do we do that? How is that done?
Well, I'm going to be a bit, say the stuff I shouldn't say, but
Not you, Jerry.
yeah, no, never.
Oh, 100%.
Without a doubt. Without a
100%.
doubt.
100%.
No, just the way the conversation flowed from one specialty into the next, right?
Yeah.
From, the
I mean,
geomechanics.
you have one guy
to the
specializing in
inversion.
inversion,
Yeah.
flow pressure, geomechanics.
It just back and forth. Like, hey, I get my part done. Tag team next
Boom.
in,
Yeah.
and just
Boom.
and just actually understanding that fully integrated workflow, right? And how actually RockDock can perform that at a high level and give
right.
you proven results.
Yeah. You coining them the Three Musketeers of Icon is legendary, dude. It's so perfect.
It's gonna go in the books for sure.
It's so perfect, man. They were the icons of Icon.
They were the icons.
And then we had Ronco Bianco.
Well, we had two Ronco Bianco.
Yeah,
so,
special guest in the next show,
Yeah,
too.
so we had first Ronco Bianco, where we just kind of talked, like you said, about the shoot, right?
Well,
the
yeah,
new
the Iron
Sea
Freedom-
Ranch, the Iron Freedom Foundation. We
Yes.
started with that as nonprofit for veterans. And
Incredible what he's doing there.
Incredible what he's doing. 99% of all the money that comes in goes back to the veterans. The 1% that stays is just there to keep the website running.
Dude,
for the
and
most
just
part.
creating the community in every individual town potentially, right? Starting in the Permian, obviously, but it's branching out and building hubs where they have their kayaks, they have their shotguns, they have the shells, they have everything they need to come back, be with their brothers in society again, and adapt back from being in such a traumatic environment and fighting in the war, man. I mean, what he's doing for the veterans is unbelievable.
It is, and I think the only reason that we're exponentially growing as fast as we are is that people see from day one that 99 cents of every dollar goes straight to the veterans. We don't see it at all. We don't have any overhead for personnel, anything. That 1 cent of every dollar pays for our website fee.
Nice,
that $10 a
man.
month. That's it. Everything else goes directly to them. We don't take anything. And that was the design. Is if you give these guys the opportunity to be in charge of their own destiny, you give them the timeline to grow and heal as they need it, instead of some of the larger organizations, which I don't like saying anything negative about, but they have a system set up where you get in a lottery to go on these trips, and they build a brotherhood that's nationwide. And which is outstanding, because you can call guys up when you need it that are in other states and all that, and that's beneficial. But we get guys only in local areas, And instead of taking a guy to Africa, let him shoot an elephant, take a bunch of pictures, you feel like a hero again, you're puffed up, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not long after you get back home to Conroe, Texas, or wherever you're at, that it all starts setting back in. That
It's
you
right
have
back
these
where you started.
Beautiful ranches and all this stuff, and they kind of drop you back off, and you've got nothing left when you get back home, and the depression will kind of set back in.
Absolutely, man.
So we take the guys out, we teach them how to kayak, how to fish, how to hunt, or where to hike, and we take them, show them where the public lands are, so they can go out anytime they want to. And at the end of every trip, they are issued all that gear to take home.
He's big on the society. He's president of PBGS, so there's that common thread again. Successful geophysicist for Fasken, involved in societies, involved in the most unbelievable shoot to ever happen in the Permian Basin. His show was really cool. And then we get into the pegs.
The pegs was here,
dude.
It was like seeing Sam Squatch, dude. Like you hear rumors of him ever since he left the Permian. It's like, where's Pegs gonna be? You know?
The Yeti.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's like there he was. You know, it's like it's proven he's still alive. It's
and
good.
his beard was out of control. He looked like a Sam Squatch.
He
dude.
did. He was. That's what threw me.
Beard was out of control. His show, though, man.
Yeah, I love Pegs.
He talks about some things on that show that I think are going to be completely eye-opening to every one of our generation.
Yep.
His perspective of getting involved on the service side first, processing microseismic, developing microseismic at the same time the operators were trying to understand how their fracs were being put away in the unconventionals. He was literally developing on the line of operating in service companies, understanding how fracs are actually working. 7 solid years, and then goes to EOG, gets on the operating side, and now he helps to visualize the reservoirs and to put those fracs away. That dude has an unbelievable career in front of him. He is going to change the world, man. That show was freaking awesome. Period. That's a fact.
Amen, dude.
Amen, brother. Hell yeah.
For everyone
who
said
that? Amen, dude. Oh man. Anyway, so that's the end of Ramsden. I mean, he's saying how it is. It's the reality. It's this window of time we keep talking about at Icon Live.
This is the last take of the day coming from Ronco and Pegs, and then it looks like we got to get out of here.
This is it. We're killing the show.
So real quick, my perspective on this whole geoscience, not being important. From my perspective, coming in as a 22-year-old in the unconventional world, I think a lot of the problems we've had is the leaders that were drilling all these conventional plays, understanding how all this worked with conventional, assets, right? They tried to take their knowledge and shove it into the unconventional space, and it just didn't work, right? So I think there was this period, the last 5-6 years, where there was uncertainty of how this is going to be applied, right, to our current problem, right? And instead of taking a step back and figuring out from scratch, we know the physics, we understand how all this stuff works on the very basis level, right? Come up with new ideas instead of trying to take old ideas and
plug them into a new model.
And like one of the talks of my session today is talking about the rock physics models, and they were talking about Archie and all this stuff for water saturation and how it doesn't work in unconventionals, and they're trying to tweak those models to make it work for unconventionals. Why not create new models?
Wow.
Based on what we're trying to do, right?
We're trying.
And we know the water's coming too, right? From production.
But not just Archie, but everything, right? Like all we do is try to take, even in the seismic world, we try to take this, this AVO stuff that was used for, DHI stuff, and we try to apply it to unconventionals without really thinking, is it even like, why are we doing that? Because, right, the people that were doing it before, that's what worked, right? So they figured it's just going to work here. Right, instead of just rethinking the whole problem. And I think it's what we're doing now. We have this younger generation coming up that are basically being educated, right, and their first lick of the industry is unconventional. I think that's going to help boost everything. I think the next 5-10 years, all these problems, not all the problems, but it's going to help, right?
On all
fronts. And then getting his and Ron's perspective on the Ramsden.
Oh my gosh, dude. We pulled up Ramsden. I don't know if that's like legal or we're gonna have issues with that.
We'll blur out his name.
We'll blur out his name.
Blur out the name.
Yeah. But everyone's gonna know hot take of the day.
Hashtag hot take of the day. That dude, it's such good stuff. That's why we brought it up. We don't mess around on the PBE podcast. We do not mess around in Icon Live. That guy was stirring up the professional industry, the technical side of the professional industry, speaking to the same people who listen to this show, We had to bring it up. It
Yeah.
didn't make sense not to bring that up. He's got really good points, and we chased them all down, especially the geoscience one. We debated a little bit.
A little bit of debate.
Without him here.
Firing some shots back. We couldn't just take it. But then he was right. There were some points where, I mean, he was 100% valid.
Right.
Right? So that's a great show. Dive into that one. And then, we wake up this morning, post Icon.
The happy hour.
Happy
man.
hour.
We got videos coming out from that happy hour, by the way, that are going to come out on like Instagrams and other things. That party was out of control. We're feeling it now. We feel good, though. We're
feel
coming.
good. I bounced back.
We're
I'm
sweating it
100%
out.
back.
It's really
Talk
hot
about
today,
yourself.
so that doesn't help at all. It's draining when it's really hot outside. And now here we are. So we did a show this morning. We did two shows.
With the good doctor. Yeah, we did
Dr. Johnston.
David Johnston and JP.
And JP.
How was that?
Dungay.
I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I'm just
leave
JP.
it up to me. JP.
JP from BHP.
From BHP.
Yeah. And then
all about 4D.
4D seismic, right?
All about time-lapse seismic.
It was some really good stuff, and I think the biggest takeaway from what they had is the reason 4D has been so successful is because they've had a continual integrated approach, right? When they were growing up, they've had mentors from multiple companies, right?
From the conception of 4D.
From the conception of 4D, there's been this conversation of, hey, we need to get better, right?
No competition.
No competition, right? Let's not step on each other's toes. Let's not keep things
just a mutual
proprietary.
understanding.
Yeah.
Let's help.
Yes. Operator to operator, service company to service company. Everyone was united.
The overall goal is to get better, right?
From a technical point of view, we're trying to better characterize our reservoirs so we know where to drill those development wells. We want to know where the fluid contacts are. We want to start developing these models that, although they are wrong for sure, might be useful and
absolutely it's useful.
and helping us plan how we're going to deplete the field.
So
and
go ahead.
Then we have more detailed 3D seismic data to help us out doing that. Now let's back up yet.
What I was going to say, and sorry to interrupt, was I feel like definitely in the unconventionals, we should be planning for that 4D shoot. We should have the original, and in the plans and in the budget must be 4D because something is absolutely changing in this unconventional. We're getting this unbelievable amount of fluid back that doesn't even match up to the K-Fee relationship. There's a mass balance problem for sure. Where's it all coming from? And why is that one mostly oil and that one mostly water? What is going on here? There's just so much moving. It's so dynamic that we must capture that time-lapse data. We must enter the 4D, and it needs to be in the budget, and we need to be shooting over the whole basin. I mean, this 850-mile square shoot is going to provide something. It's going to be a visual and a model that helps us to better understand pressure depletion, pressure-dependent permeability issues, what's going on? What is actually moving in these reservoirs? Is the TOC changing, right? I mean, it's not just about porosity and permeability in this system. That's not right. There's more to it. Otherwise, we would have it all figured out and we'd mass balance a little bit better if that was the case. There's something else going on, and we have to figure it out.
Well, it's definitely not porosity and permeability. I think that one's pretty clear.
Right.
We want to make sure we get every drop of oil out of that reservoir, right, and doing it properly. And understanding how those reservoirs change. So when we go to another place, we can have a predictive model of what's going to happen there.
You making that point is, I think, huge. I think the fact that 4D developed the way it had, based on what that is, the conception of it, never being in competition, always being in integration, always being in challenging each other, being on the same team, has led 4D to what it is today. At the same time, the industry needs 4D more so than ever.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening to this reservoir and to our acreage after we put fracs away and after we bring wells on production? Maximum horizontal stress and getting fracs put away on your parent-child relationship problems. 4D is going to have major answers, and it's because it came together perfectly. Started with no competition from conception. It's developed properly. Everyone's uniting. Everyone's bringing the best out of each other. The industry's calling upon the results to it, and it's now. That was freaking awesome.
It was. And then from there,
Lou
Vincent. From the stars to the subsurface.
That was awesome,
That's
man.
the quote. From the stars to the subsurface. Kind of tie back into the seismic side of things. So where do you see, with the seismic data we have currently, where the future lies there? How can we get the most out of that seismic data, right? Instead of just using it for well planning and just basic de-risking, where do you see leveraging seismic data?
Well, there is a revolution going on in both the acquisition side with all the nodes going on in the Gulf of Mexico and the deployment and retrieval of nodes. So on an exploration level, it used to be just something that was done in production, but it's very recently TGS have done an exploration level node survey. And there's a revolution going on because it's so tied, the processing is so tied to computing power, and it exponentially increases. So the things we always wanted to do or would take, months or years to do, it's happening in hours and minutes. So it's all leading to a better, you're taking a better picture with the acquisition, and then you're processing the picture a lot better to, photoshopping it, see all the things you want. So, so it makes life a lot easier for the interpreter, but at the same time, we've got a lot more data. I mean, that's another thing that's happening as well. It all leads to exponentially increasing amount of data. So archiving that data, retrieving that data, and fortunately the cloud's playing into that. So all the planets are aligning for us to explore.
Yeah, and going through his career and more or less just talking about understanding the seismic process, right? How he started as an astrophysicist, and then as a doodlebugger, and now at Hess as chief geophysicist.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe so.
I think he's like a director of innovation or something.
Director. All I know is he's a hired gun.
Yeah,
incredibly smart. And when he said
not
it
a
later,
hired gun. That was dumb.
Without the G.
He's up there.
When he talked about that, knowing the seismic system, right? The whole, we call it the process, but don't get it confused with processing.
Yeah.
Seismic process is from acquisition to interpretation to application. And that dude's lived it, man, the whole career.
Every step in that process he's worked.
Yep.
All over the world.
All over the
world. He did not have a direct answer for when it was, what's next? You know what I mean? He didn't address that. He just said, we have the data, we have the people, we have the technology, we have the software, integrate it all.
Yeah. We're no longer hamstrung, right? Because it was always, we know we don't have the processing power to do this, right? That was always the kind of the excuse with geophysics in the past. And that's no longer an excuse. You can build computers that can do just about anything now.
Yeah.
It almost instantaneously. Cloud computing, all of this, right? So that excuse is out the door. Now is the time to interpret that data and leverage that data, optimize it.
Yep.
Right? Using things like Icon, whatever.
Yeah, this
right?
is the window of time. Unconventionals has led us to this most important thing we call integration.
Yep.
That's the only way we understand unconventionals is by integrating all the things before and now trying to force it into a model. That's literally that's the visual of the unconventional play.
100%.
And here we are, SEG 2019. DJ Drew sitting down. Come up here, DJ. DJ Drew. This is an incredible story to me. One, we all went through UTPB.
We're all Falcons here.
Falcons up.
Falcons up.
Falcons up.
Look at my pin.
Look at the pin on DJ Drew.
Always.
He's proud. Hey, there's Keith Edwards. What's happening, Keith? We were just talking. Me too. You missed your recap. We recapped your show earlier today. We appreciated your time, man. Definitely, and we'll. When do we get to finish that show? Is absolutely right. So, DJ, we bring you into the booth. We're all from UTPB, little old town of Odessa, the heart of the Permian Basin, where we got our graduate degrees. For you, it was your second graduate degree.
Yeah, the first was in geophysics, and this is in geology.
Yeah. Now you're trying to understand the physical world better. So you're out there with your boots on the ground. Skippo took you out to the sands of the Navajo Sands, right?
Yeah, we went out to Arches, Canyonlands, looked at the dunes, and it was probably 30 minutes of actual work and then 3 days of just hiking around, just being amazed by the natural
new
world.
Trails.
Yeah.
It's all about the wind.
It's all about the wind.
It's all about the wind. That's your thesis. That's right. DJ, what'd you think of this convention, man? You were able to make it. You are actually mud logging right now, which we'll get into. You were able to make that schedule work.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're here. You're a technician, a sound technician. You were a geophysicist. But the industry is what it is. You're out mud logging right now. You shut the rig down. You left. You got some support there. You're here. What did you think of the convention after 3 days?
I mean, SEG is my jam. I love it. I'm a geophysicist, right? So I have to come here no matter what. And I made it. And I love it. There are so many things going on right now. Like at SEG, there was SEG student education program. There was SEG student leadership symposium, which is with Chevron. And people from all around the world come to that. Students from all around the world come to those, participate in that. We have poster session. We have talks. We have.
You made it through the posters?
I did.
Some of them?
Yeah, Dhruv chaired one of the poster sessions.
Yeah, the
right?
poster presenters were looking
right
at my
on.
name tag, and they were like, "Are you really like a judge?" I'm like,
Really?
"Yeah, for half an hour I am." What can you do about it?
What are you going to do about it? Huh? I'm going to judge you.
Your poster. The success of your poster is in my hands, so I would stop talking like that.
I'm here to judge you.
I bet Dhruv. That's exactly what Dhruv said. I can imagine Dhruv in that position, just taking advantage of that. The power is in Dhruv's hand. I remember doing the Scholastic Challenge with you. Wow, what a pain in the ass that was. Just, I have the power. Listen to me, Troy. I'm like, damn it. All right, Dhruv.
Fortunately, the poster session was related to organic materials and compaction, and I have been mud logging, so I was able to understand most of the posters.
Because you're experienced with mud logging now.
Yeah, because I could understand what they were showing, like mud samples and stuff. So.
Well, that's interesting. So let's go into that, dude. So here's the reality of your story from my perspective. You were, without question, the most technical geophysicist that UTPB has ever had. It's a short few years of UTPB geophysics degrees.
Totally agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
But dude, you are technically sound.
Yeah.
You understand physics.
From the processing, you know, to just understanding attributes, to understanding, inversion.
You know how to run the software. You then got a geology degree, and then you're like, hey, I need an opportunity. I'm going out there. I'm ready for employment. And for whatever reason it is, you are not hired by an operator or service company to be geophysics and to help with the geophysics department, which is odd. It's a strange thing. But instead of you being upset and running away or doing something else and going back and being an engineer or something else that maybe you can get an easier job with, you were told time and time again by the professionals in Midland and Odessa and the Permian Basin that you just need to stay present. You're not getting the job you want. Stay present by getting a job that you can do, and that job will open up, and it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
It's like Richard Pagel's story, right? It's a very similar story.
We met him yesterday, and he told me that I'd mud log if I could right now. And I was like, okay.
Richard Pagel, the geophysicist of XTO, says, I would mud log if I could right now.
Yeah.
Why did he say that?
Because he wants to look at the actual cuttings, at the actual rocks, instead of just sitting behind a computer and
looking at data.
Yeah.
Show me where this fluid is coming from. Show me the rock. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. And he doesn't get to do that. He's a geophysicist in an unbelievable job. He can go out to the rig if he really, really wanted to, but he's tied up. He's doing his geophysics things, and he's looking at you. You're a geophysicist that's now mud logging to stay in industry, to stay active, to understand another part of the industry.
Yes.
You're staying in it. You're doing it. Mud logging is a very physical and demanding job, mentally and physically. You're crazy hours. You're constantly chasing the rigs. It's a great job. You're learning a ton about the drill bit at formation and how it responds with gas kicks and fluid kicks.
Yeah.
You're learning all that stuff right at the drill bit, man. So, like, how does that relate to taking it back? You're in an interview 4 years from now. You got mud logging under your belt. You're still a geophysicist. How does that relate in your mind right now?
So let's imagine Pagel sitting behind a seismic section, and he's seeing small changes in seismic, but he's not sure if it's a real fault. But when you have mud logging data, you can tell that you have crossed a fault. You can actually tell that the sample changed from one point to another.
You can validate essentially.
You can validate. You can validate everything that you are doing. For any company, any operator, it's necessary to validate, right? We are all validating each other's stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first time like Wolfgang was drilled and people were started drilling there, right? There were multiple people who proved that Wolfgang's producing. So everything is about validation.
I love that, man. I really love that. I think now you can take it even a step further maybe, and you could say, is that weird little anomaly in the seismic where we're about to build this curve, is that anomaly real or not?
Yeah.
What would you expect? And if you are expecting something, let's tell the drillers, let's tell the mud loggers that through this section, you got about 500 feet of measured drilling. Please collect as much samples as you possibly can. Let's evaluate the geochem. Let's evaluate the cuttings that are coming from the curve, and let's predict, is this a fault or not? Because if you're seeing that one anomaly, maybe there's 20 more around the area.
Sure.
Are they all real or are they all not? We don't need to drill into every single one of them. You just need good interpretations and test the hypotheses. It's what we do. I love that connection between mudlog. I want to go fucking mudlog right now. That got me fired up. Show me some cuttings, man. Show me some cuttings. Show me the cuttings. That's awesome, dude.
Another thing is pore pressure. If you're able to tell pore pressure, we are right now standing at the Icon booth, right? It's all about the rock physics. Where does the rock physics come from? Like pore pressure models, we have rock physics models. So it's the basic. It's like you're validating your rock physics models by mud logging because you can tell the pressure, the pore pressure, where sand and clays and shale.
That's freaking awesome, man. You're working with Geolog, right?
I am.
Geolog's doing a bunch of advanced stuff. They directly measure the fluid. They have a fascinating setup there, what they're capable of doing. You're learning a ton. Isaac is your mentor.
No,
is he working with you? You're working with Isaac?
Not really.
Not really? But you get to work with him a little bit?
I talk to him sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. I bring that up because what you're saying with this rock physics stuff, man, like we need to do a better job at making it important that mud logging is part of this system.
Is utilized. Because it's the tie back to the physical world, right? We're talking about digital transformation, right? But at the end of the day, the only way your digital models can be validated is with the rock data.
Dude, perfectly said, Skippo. Perfectly said. It wraps up the whole thing, man. Well done, sir. Well done. Ba-boom.
I'm going to drop the mic.
P-Dog.
That's a lie. That's a lie. These are expensive.
P-Dog, enjoyed the hell out of it with you, man. You did a great job
fun,
in the
man.
booth. You gave presentations. That was awesome to see.
You are the icon.
I'm learning something new
you
every
are,
day.
You are an
It's
icon.
fun. Yeah. I'm one of the three musketeers. Not really. No,
not yet.
Not yet.
You're not at that level yet.
Skippo, as always, enjoyed the hell out of it, man. Let's do it again next year, SEG 2020. Yep. It's in Houston. It'll be bigger. It'll be brighter. We'll be smarter. We'll be more integrated.
In theory.
In theory. We'll have better equipment.
Better data.
But DJ, I'm glad you made it, man, and I'm incredibly impressed with your ability to stay in the industry like you were told to do and advised to do by people who actually went out and did the same thing and now have good positions and they're living those crazy good lives and they're doing this stuff for their company. It's just a matter of time for someone like you, man. You're proving yourself, and I'm just proud to call you a friend and to go to school with you and have the same degree from you, from the same university, man. We did it together. We did it with each other, and we'll be brothers till the end. Bottom line, that's how this works.
Falcons for life, dog.
Falcons for life. Falcons up. And Skippo, what did we say? We out.